you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
This is Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, there and ladies, things that makes it official. Welcome to the show. As always, with the Chris Voss Show, for over 16 years and 2,800 episodes, we bring in the Chris Voss Show because we care. We love our audience. We think you guys are great and just the most amazing folks in the world. And we're one of the oldest still living broadcasting podcasts on a daily basis. I don't think anyone's doing daily anymore, and there's like a handful of us left. So please support the show. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss one, the TikTokity, and all those crazy places on the internet. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. Today, an amazing young man on the show with us today. We're going to be talking about his artwork. We're getting into the art. I love art. Art's amazing. It's amazing, the human expression and hope that comes through art, and sometimes the messaging and maybe teaching us something about ourselves. He's the author of the latest book that came out December 2nd, 2014, 100 Paintings, An Artist's Life in New York City by Rob Mango. He joins us on the show. We're going to be talking to him about some of his insights, his experience, and his wonderful art that he shares in the book. He is an artist who approaches work as a process of discovery and rather becoming than a fixed entity. Grounded in classical foundations, yet shaped by wide-ranging influences, New York City itself, literature, philosophy, psychology, he continually pushes the boundaries of visual language, resisting the gilded cage of a recognizable brand in favor of perpetual reinvention. He imbues his paintings with a signature fealty to the transformation of desire, emotion, and intuition into kinetic conversations with the viewer, exploring ever new intersections of thought and form. Welcome to the show, Rob. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thanks for coming. We're really happy to have you as well. Give us .coms, websites, social media. Where do you want people to find out more about you on the interweb, sir?
RobMango.com it's an ever-changing tableau of my work, and I'm pretty active on Instagram, RobMango_artist. But listen, Chris, that description that you gave of me a few minutes ago, that was scary accurate.
That is from the PR agency, so.
Wow, somebody over there figured me out. That's really awesome.
Hey, you know, that now you're going to have to change again. So give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside your book?
What's inside of my book? You know, it says 100 paintings, but there's actually more than that. It's 100 Paintings, An Artist's Life in New York City. And I just decided to call it what it was. I wrote it and assembled it first and named it later. But so I selected the paintings that were kind of more definitive and formative of me since I've been here in New York. And it's an ever-changing place, let me tell you. And I'm an ever-changing guy, but my paintings of New York are, in some people's opinion, my best works. They're very accurate in description and, you know, descriptive. And when you paint New York, you kind of have to paint every window. You know, when you paint a building, if you don't sort of man up to the detail involved in painting the Chrysler Building, which I painted half a dozen times, you know, I have that engineering background because that's what I did when I was a kid before I made a buck as an artist. I was a draftsman, engineer, designer. And, you know, the architectural landscape of New York kind of fell right, very natural to me. But the city is inhabited by avatars and gods and entities, which you walk the streets of my imagination more than the city itself.
So these are 100 features or features of 100 of your personal artworks that you've created.
Yeah, they're all my paintings. And listen, when I came to New York, the only friend I had here was an ex-girlfriend, and she turned out to be pretty temporary.
What?
And So I worked as a night watchman, a carpenter. Turned into be a really good carpenter, and I started refurbishing lofts in Tribeca, which is a downtown neighborhood in Manhattan, and turning them into luxury lofts. And I worked for various developers, and then the people who moved into these lofts were usually Wall Street or lawyers, or downtown used to be really rough, and it was becoming gentrified. Yeah. So these people then would buy my pictures, and this is kind of how things got rolling for me. This is over about a 10-year period. And a lot of times the Wall Street guys got so excited about my work that they started buying them for their offices.
Oh, wow.
And now we're getting into the late 80s, and I had some trading floors in the Wall Street area that had 10, 15, 20 paintings of mine. So those guys kept me alive. And that kind of kicked it off. So
that's cool.
Yeah, that's kind of how it happened.
That's cool. So tell us about your paintings. I mean, I see that some are like 3-dimensional. There's 2 behind you. If those watching on YouTube, are they all 3-dimensional like that, or do they vary?
No, they're not all 3-dimensional. I really try to diversify between flat oil painting and the sculpted pieces, which I invented it. I have this itch in me to see 2D and 3D at the same time. And so some of these pictures are low relief, we call that. Mm-hmm. Like the piece right here, a famous American Olympian named Tanja Buford Bailey. She made three
That's
Olympic
beautiful.
Games. Thank you.
I love the 3-dimensional nature of it. It really stands out.
Thank you. Some people love it. Some people are worried that, it's going to, collect
jump out of the painting. And then there's the one on the right of you. Is that kind of alluding to fish?
That's a boy-girl picture. That's based on 2 models actually I had, and I abstracted it in color and quite a bit. It's 3D also. I love dance, and I get a lot of inspiration. As a matter of fact, I love moving subjects, and movement is inherent to my paintings. I think the audience maybe goes into a painting because they're trying to escape their own space, their own world. And when the picture is moving, it allows them to do that a little easier.
I see that now in your paintings. There's a camera on my screen with a cable going across the one on the right. So now I can see it. I've kind of moved a little bit. And the runner has got that flow. So you like to capture the movement.
I do. I'm real partial to running. So, I've been commissioned to paint 10 Olympians by the University of Illinois, where they all went to school. Olympians and legends. There's a couple of NFL football players too. I'm working on a painting of Dick Butkus right now, a famous linebacker for the Chicago Bears.
Chicago Bears, the Bears.
And he was an Illinois grad. And I missed making an Olympic team myself by a foot.
Really?
In 1972, I was a junior in college, a little young. I was a half miler. And the following year, 73, I did win the NCAAs in the half mile.
Oh, really?
And narrowly missed beating the Olympic champion from the year before, Dave Warhol. But I think painting these Olympians is just an itch, a desire that's lingered in me. So it's been a great series, a fun series. They're going to exhibit in the state of Illinois in the fall.
You could almost say, and I don't believe in meant to be's, but I believe in the development and growth of an artist, whether you're in business. I consider myself a business artist. I also consider myself an artist of the camera. And it's interesting to me how the human stasis, the human being evolves through its art. And we're all kind of artists. I don't know. I'm just kind of improvising this as I go along, but this is kind of coming to me as a bit of feed. Would you say that we're all kind of artists? We're all kind of human beings, being human, human beings being?
I think childhood is a natural state of art and creativity. Children are gifted with one set of talents or another, sometimes multiple talents. So they're forced to make a choice.
Yeah.
And they do, but there's nothing like kids' art. It's just so incredibly free and different. And I'm so stimulated by the work of children, particularly my grandkids. And I agree with you that that creativity lurks in the human being.
Yeah. And it's development. When I really think about it, a lot of my art, this is kind of just an epiphany I had. I think that was the word I was looking for earlier. I just had an epiphany talking to you, and this is why I love this show. I learned stuff. Sometimes I may learn more than in the audience, but the epiphany is we're all artists as human beings. We're all painting our life. One of the things we always say on the Chris Voss show, it's my quote, stories are the fabric of our lives. They're the things that make us. They're the things that bind us together. I mean, if you took away all my stories, I'd be the most boringest person in the world. I probably already am, according to my dates, but but no, we're this evolving, developing. For some of us, we're developing. I don't know about the people on Twitter, but we're this developing people, and hopefully we grow and we change. And I think that's what you've gone a lot through. Let's go to your childhood, and that's that peak of imagination before we become these tainted, I don't know, bitter, angry adults that kind of closes off our imagination. Tell us about your first experience of when you started realizing maybe this art thing was a thing for you, an outlet for you.
I started making clay models of World War II airplanes when I was about 6 or 7 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, out of clay, we were, I would say, lower middle class, and clay was something that was cheap and a great kid's toy. And
was there anything that inspired you to do that, or just come natural? Was there any maybe artists or influence, something you saw?
I had 4 uncles that all served in World War II or the Korean War. And I had just a kind of a respect for everything military. And my father was in the Navy. And so that kind of launched it. But, the first time I visited the Art Institute of Chicago, the painter woke up in me. And I'm now 12, 14 years old, 13. And I went back home and I reproduced the works of the Impressionists, the French Impressionists, with kind of scary accuracy. And those paintings ended up getting distributed to the homes of all my family members.
Wow.
And they still hang. So
that is awesome. What a testament.
It's kind of how it started. The Art Institute had a college associated with it, and the teachers there kind of were told about this kid that was painting all the pictures in the museum, and he was 14 years old. And
wow.
So they invited me to come take classes for free. I was like a sponge. To tell you the truth, pretty soon I was better than the teachers. And
wow.
And I actually ended up teaching some classes myself. And
wow.
And now in high school. So
you were an early prodigy.
Yeah, it was always there. But I had a mechanical sense too. My father was a designer, and I worked for him and with him. I worked for all my uncles who were in the trades. And so the combination between dimensional things and painterly things kind of merged then. And I only really have come to grips with that in recent years to realize that these two elements are always swimming together. Huh? But what you were saying earlier, Chris, about people and we're all being artists, I see the world through the audience's eyes. I mean, I never lose myself. I like to know what makes people tick and, what their needs are and what they want from art, and what painting and sculpture is now is so much different than what it was like in the 19th century when those Impressionist paintings that I copied were done, Before there was no digital media, there was no television, there was no photography was minimal. But now the needs of people are so diversified, and an artist has to kind of meet the challenge of contemporary consciousness in the audience. And I do that, which is part of the reason why my work is somewhat diverse, and I understand branding, but branding to me, as it applies to what I do, is I don't systematize my approach. I think that's the opposite of genius. I think, I learned from the great neoclassic masters and the Impressionists, but I bring that back through an American imagination. And I'll tell you, I have my own gallery in Tribeca, and it's a ground floor space. People walk in here and I see their eyes, and there's a need there. And I try to understand that need through them.
Why is art so important, or in the format, whether it's speaking in the terms that you are, you talked about contemporary and why people really, when they see your art and they see art, they tend to light up, or it tends to have an effect on them. What is that effect, and why is that important to us as human beings?
That's a brilliant question, Chris.
That's why they have a podcast.
You hit a home run with that. I think that the nature of contemporary life is so confining, demanding, and difficult, really. I mean, the current generation, it's like they're kind of coming to grips with economic factors and changing industries and AI and art, which is from the heart and from the soul and from the essence of feeling, is not that. And so the need for it, a place to go where, the human experience, the deeper level of experience, not all those contemporary elements that I just mentioned, exist. So I think that the need that people have, as you question, is just to find that source, that thing that's not the worrisome, bothersome world.
Yeah. I'll tell you a story. When I was growing up, I was raised in an oppressive religious cult. And I'll give you a hint. It's in Utah. And very early on, I was shamed and scolded and excoriated about, the naked body and how evil it was. And, people like Hugh Hefner were evil, who celebrated the human form or the female form. And I was just indoctrinated with that. I mean, as a child, I didn't, I didn't know any better. But, as nudity is evil, sex is, only for procreation, and, porn is completely evil. Hugh Hefner was coming up at the time, and the Playboy magazine, that's evil. People, sex was just basically rated as evil. And there was this gentleman that was on my street in California, and he had this huge, beautiful lot. And his first name was Art. It was kind of funny. And I don't know if that was his segue. I'd love to interview him today. But as a child, I was mowing lawns and doing everything. And back then, you just wander people's properties, wander all over. You drink out of the front hose for some reason. You could just violate people's property, go on and drink out of the hose. We're Gen X, right? And he had this beautiful estate. And so I think I was talking to him about mowing his lawns or something. He needed care. And then he had this crazy, just wild property. It was beautiful. But he had this studio behind his house, and he would sculpt with clay and other materials, I suppose. I'm not a sculptor, so don't sue me, folks. Don't write me. But he would do these beautiful statues. Some were small, some were like almost life size. And he would have, and they would be of the female form, and in usually some variation of nudity. They'd be wrapped in some sort of, and a lot of them were kind of like those old Roman, the David and some of those old sort of sculptures. And I remember going into studio, and by then I became friends with him, and he had all these cool little cars he was working on. And so I just come up, hang with him. And I remember seeing the sculptures, and I was like, oh, that's bad. I've been told that's bad. That woman's nude. You have people come here? And he goes, yeah, Chris, there's women that come and they model for me, and they're nude. And I'm like, really? And so I kind of gave him the rundown of what I thought, was what I've been doctoring with. And he sat down with me. He's really wonderful. And he said, no, Chris, this is the human form. This is natural. This is, this is something that isn't dirty. It's not filthy. This is beautiful. I mean, and it kind of really realigned my thinking about the beautification of the human form and celebrating femininity, celebrating women. I mean, they're beautiful. I mean, men, we built whole worlds and governments and standards, and we built the whole world to be safe for women because we appreciate their beauty and value the womb and what that beauty brings to the propagation of the species. We're all designed for that. And he really changed me up. And thank God he did, because Jesus, I was freaking sold a load of bullshit. And so now I just have this wonderful appreciation of art, value of the human form, human beings, the hope that we have, or the endurance, our failures in life. And art captures so much that in an imaginative sense. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. If you have any thoughts on that, Rob.
Yeah, your experience as a child, wow, there's a short story to be written in there, Chris. You need to do that.
Yeah.
Different species of animals, and it's in many species of animals, the male is the visually dominant gender. I mean,
men are the romantics.
Lions, look at the peacocks. I mean,
yeah.
But in the human species, it's women that are visually dynamic and want to be seen and sort of present themselves that way. And there's kind of an imperative for a woman as a young girl to be beautiful. And the methodology of beauty is proliferated from a very young age, and they're successful at it. They are beautiful. And, so the other gender, us, we're kind of the audience to that. And, it's been that way in art since the very first piece of art ever recorded in history, which is most historians believe to be the Venus of Willendorf, which is a sculpture dating back to 700 or 800 BC.
Oh, wow.
And, it was only in the Renaissance that as driven by the Pope, that the female form became suppressed as subject.
Yeah.
Back one movement to classical Greece, women were visually dynamic and celebrated. Here comes the Pope in the Renaissance, and great sculpture is the life of the saints and Jesus Christ. And they did it well, believe me. But then immediately after that, the neoclassic period, artists took the skills of the Renaissance, went back and took the subject matter of the Greeks and redid it. Women got thrust back into art. I hope I'm not getting off your theme here.
No, I think that builds on it nicely.
But the neoclassic painters and sculptors are my favorites. And, I had an exhibition in Venice in 2023 that lasted for 4 months, Venice, Italy. And it was a great show. I got a lot of attention. It was so much fun. Italians are unbelievable. But during that show, I went to a side trip to Florence. And I went to Michelangelo's studio, which was in the basement of a chapel at the Medici Chapel in Florence. And after he left the payroll of the Pope and he was taken away by the Medicis, the wealthy family of Florence, he started sculpting women. Okay? And other than the Virgin Mary, there really weren't any women in Michelangelo's repertoire of works. And the few sculptures of women that he did that were in the basement of the Medici Chapel so stunned me that my wife had to shake me. I was semi-conscious sitting on a bench. They really changed me. So I came back to New York and I did a painting literally of myself in that studio of his with the two sculptures side by side. And it's on my website, and I painted his sculptures so true to the way they really look. It was a total eulogy to him, And I'm just taking that female subject idea a little further within my own context. So tell me to shut up if I say too much.
No. This is what we're here to hear from you and stuff. And you built on that wonderfully. I'm looking at this Venus of Willendorf in the Wikipedia here. This is astounding. This is why I love this show. I learn stuff from every guest. The Venus figure made 30,000 years ago.
Okay, yeah, I wanted to give a conservative date to it.
Yeah, and its material is made of oolitic limestone, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's extraordinary.
That's the thing about sculpture, is that it's got to last, and there's the proof of it.
And it's got boobs. Now I can see it was definitely made by a man.
Well, no, it's like you put yourself in the artist. The name of the painting that I did, by the way, I'm trying to remember it, is... don't have it. But,
okay.
I mean, with that Venus of Willendorf and many sculptures after that, what was going on with the sculptor? Was it just like creating a goddess? The thing that drove him most was the adoration and love for a woman, of woman. Mm-hmm. So did that cause that sculpture to happen? It's a fertility thing too. It's an appeal to the gods for a woman to give birth, I think. So,
and that's in our nature, propagation of species. Everything we do is about the propagation of species. Pretty much everything a guy does is trying to just get laid, have a seed for his children. Yeah. I'm looking through your artwork, and it goes back to 1970s. You've got it featured on your website here of your work. And it's kind of interesting to see the evolving nature of your art and some of the changes through it. It seems like it kind of changes almost on a decade basis.
That's correct. It's true. I've been true to myself and the voice inside of me, which I think is the voice of a 15-year-old boy who is very uncompromising, and I had a fabulous mother who, at the kitchen table, when other kids were learning, very rudimentary things, she was reading me poetry and introducing me to great poets and writers. And so by the time I got to high school, I became very interested in philosophy. And I discovered Friedrich Nietzsche, and he wrote a book called The Will to System. And in the book, he put forth that the tendency to systematize your thought process is antithetical to creativity. And I don't know, the lights just kind of went on in my brain. Reinvention of both material and idea. It's like you only have 80, 90 years to create. That's just a grain in the hourglass. And I just am not going to waste a day, a year, much less a decade of being boring, And the thing is, how much is there that can be invented? You might say, what can man do? Man can only do so much. I think I'm driven by the notion that the creative mind, the imagination, can just do things that you would never expect. Yeah. And I stand in front of a blank canvas, and I refuse to be the guy I was yesterday. I get out of bed in the morning, I come down, I have a kind of a thesis of not being the guy I was yesterday. Now, obviously, I'm working on paintings that sometimes take as much as 10 years, but and so I'm evolving the idea that caused the painting to happen, but I reinvent also. And that's the nice thing about these athletes, is that there's a classicism to them. There's a Greek origin to the Olympians. And so it gives me a justifiable basis to embrace the past, not just the future. I mean, I'm painting them in such a way like they've never been done before, but there's that historical basis or blend to them. And what's next?
So can people hire you, commission you to do work for them? If someone's out there listening to our conversation and they're like, I really like his art.
Works on a commission basis, and it's happened many times. These athletes are that. I mean, there's, the audience and the collectors and stuff. There's one collector a very conservative guy. He was the CFO of the biggest companies in New York and the world, Hearst Publishing, and he knew what he liked, and he saw one of my pictures that had been sold. Now, this has happened a number of times, and he said, Rob, can you do that for me? I love that painting. And So I did, and when I did the original, like the girl upstairs modeled for it, and she doesn't even live here anymore. But so I did that. And the name of the picture is Ballet. I don't know if it's on the website or not, but then it's just crazy things happen. Then this guy that owns his own hedge fund saw that painting Ballet and came to my studio with his wife, came back about 3 or 4 or 5 times and didn't find anything they liked, right? And then I was having an event here where there's 200 people and a band and cocktails and everything. And at the end of the night, he stayed the whole night. He said to me, Rob, do you have anything which is really uplifting? And I thought to myself, I had painted this picture of a Venetian carnival clown that I saw in Venice, Italy. And it had this abstract, fluid, atmospheric background. And then, I saw this clown and I followed him, and I took some photographs of him. And then I got back to New York. I did sketches of him. And I painted this picture called A Miss in the Abyss.
Wow. And I'm sorry.
A Miss in the Abyss. Okay. And the guy who wrote Smokey Robinson's tune, Tears of the Clown, was Smokey's manager. And this manager saw this painting, walked in my gallery, and he just had to have it. Bam, I sold it to him. He died, and he had the greatest clown collection in America. I mean,
really?
And my painting was the best picture he had. That's what he said. That's what his kids said. So he died, and they had to liquidate this thing, this collection. They called me up rather than taking it to an auction, and I said, "Yeah, I'll buy it back."
Wow.
So I bought it back, and I put it on my shelf. Now we're back to the party. The guy says to me, "Rob, have you got anything really uplifting?" His name is Charlie Michaels and his wife Doris, the most beautiful people. And Charlie had his own hedge fund, so he could write a check. And I pulled it off the shelf, and they both just dropped dead. Right?
Wow.
They fucking loved it. Oh, sorry. And
that's okay. We let a few of those slide on the show.
They installed it in their penthouse over Central Park, and it's just so people saw it in that setting in their friends of theirs, parties, cocktail parties. Now I'm doing paintings based on that picture for people in Zurich and 2 commissions out of Zurich. And that's kind of how it works for me. People see my paintings. It's a one-on-one thing. It's the work of art. It's the work that sells it, But
let me ask you this. And so people can contact you through your website, your email, to find out maybe, if they want to have something commissioned. Why does certain types of art, or maybe the content of that art, why do you feel that resonates deeply? Is there something maybe we're missing inside and that fills a hole? You mentioned that one of the gentlemen who was buying your pieces of art, he wanted something that was uplifting and happy. Almost sounds like maybe he was trying to fill a bucket in himself, that maybe he was a little low. Why do you feel people, like I love beautiful photographs, like a lot of black and white art. Some people like paintings. I like paintings too. I can see the art in that. But, I might be more, I might have a preference. And some people do. Like some people, the art is music. Some people, the art is, some form or variation of painting or pictures, whether it's, sketches or chalk or paint. Why? What do you see when, you've probably experienced that a lot with your customers, clients with, why do certain things resonate with certain people in a certain way? Maybe have you ever figured that one out?
I think the single most significant factor in this discussion is authenticity. And I mean, there's a belief and a hope that the audience, when they connect with a work of art, that the origins of that work of art are authentic. They're not crass. They're not commercial. They're not, and there's a soul connection which is better than this world. Can I take a risk and show you something?
Sure. Yeah.
This is another version of that carnival clown. Can you see it?
You can. Wow.
So the demand for this picture was such that I've painted 7 more of them. You know? And that this guy became my avatar, and he's got a paintbrush in every painting. He's wielding the paintbrush and he's throwing it into the abyss. Comes the name A Miss in the Abyss. So this guy is this character, this avatar, who I would never want anybody to see my body, so I wear this costume, this carnival clown. And he is the main character in this movie I was telling you about, which is being made of my paintings of New York.
Oh, wow.
Okay. He's a time traveler. He lands on 42nd Street in the early 1980s. And, 42nd Street was a miserable, decadent mess at that point. It was panhandlers and drug dealers and prostitutes, and it was a mess. This is before Rudy.
That's Fridays around the Chris Voss show right there.
But yeah, you keep getting back to that question about why do people need art, and what are they filling a blank spot in their soul? And Chris, yes, and so am I. I'm a seeker. I'm looking to fill that spot. So I'm giving you solutions, models, images, ideas for that fulfillment. And it's color, it's form, it's movement, and what we are talking about, Chris, pathos. And you see, it's in literature also.
What was that term again?
Pathos.
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 Pathos?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And it's a indefinable, ineffable substance which is deep in the human soul. And, it's the great writers try to embody it, uncover it, display it, whether it's Dostoevsky or T.S. Eliot or... I've read everything by the guy who made the movie, the big sci-fi film, Andy Weir. The sci-fi film is Hail Mary, right?
Oh, okay.
He's got
that new one.
He's got 3 novels out, and I've read each one of them on the day they were released, going back a couple of years. I kept telling everybody this book, Hail Mary, is just so incredible. It would be a great movie, and now it's the biggest movie since E.T. But pathos, there's a need. I don't know if you've seen the movie or any of your viewers have, but the need to know the alien, and is the alien of good heart. This is what we want. This is what our heart wants. And so the notion of that spot that's being filled, hopefully by artists, the audience wants authenticity from the artist. It wants the artist's soul to be true. And I got to tell you something. There's so much crap in art, modern art in America. There's so many phonies, and they're just creating brands, and the brands are shallow. And I'm sorry.
You're describing the Chris Voss show brand right now.
Oh, don't say that.
I'm just kidding. I'm just being fun. But no, there's the madness that I go through in life, and maybe some of that was reflected in your trust fund friends, or not trust fund, the fund folks. We go through so much madness, and everything is fixing problems and doing this. And I think that this is kind of another epiphany I'm having. I find great peace in looking at art, especially like black and white photographic art. I just love that medium, and some of the ways when it's presented well, or presented to my flavor, let's put it that way, because they're all done well, and I find peace in it, and it gives me pause. It gives me a moment to think of gratitude, think about my life. And I think maybe what it all ties into is it harkens us back to that childhood imagination that we've lost as adults. Many of us have lost. Let's put it that way. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that to build on.
I think you're defining repression, which is, if you give any credence to Freud and Jung, that life is a process of suppressing your true self, your true nature, because it's not sustainable in society, which is a group of individuals. But it's interesting. You were saying that the black and white, I think you mean photography, gives you a sense of peace.
Yes.
Yeah. But earlier you were saying there is a need. So either the need is peace, or there's different things in you that art can address, possibly. And I think that, human nature is not necessarily a simple thing, and it's also changing in the course of anybody's life. So the needs change, and that's why that timeless work of art, whether it's sculpture, painting, or photography, is something we seek, because the timeless thing is kind of the man for all seasons. It's both peace and desire, and it quenches the thirst for the unknown, but it satisfies the fulfillment of the historical imperative that we have of what happened before that we so love, but what we need in our apprehensions of the future. And
it kind of harkened me to this idea that maybe that's our loss. That's something that we bear, the losing our imagination of children, and the stuff you've talked about how, we just become these marching systems of bots, that are afraid of our own uniqueness, individualists, or creativity. Maybe we're just, okay, well, let's do the work thing, do the college thing, do the, go 9 to 5. I'm just this bot moving through the world doing what I'm supposed to do. And I think maybe there's a death inside of us, or maybe a loss, an empty bucket, if I can call that back. And it's a wound that we miss from the loss of imagination as a childhood. And I think that's maybe why we come back to art. Remember that movie Citizen Kane, where it was all about Rosebud? It was about the one, and he collected and he bought everything. He bought works of art. He bought all this stuff, and all of it was to fill that empty bucket of the loss of his imagination and his childhood. It wasn't about the sled. That's what it. That's a timeless moment. I just never had another epiphany. It wasn't about the sled. It was about the loss of innocence. And I think that's the death of us that we have inside of us, that we hearken back to, and it brings back that childhood. I don't know.
That's what I meant by the repression comment, that repressing the experience of childhood until it's just a little whimper, and it was symbolized by Rosebud in Citizen Kane, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. What a great discussion on art we've had today. I've had some wonderful epiphanies too. We're having a great Monday morning, folks. For the show to your family, friends, and relatives, damn it, this is what we do. So as we go out, Rob, give people a final pitch out to find out more about you and where they can find it, .coms and all that good stuff.
Yeah, if you're curious about me and what I do, the name of the book is Rob Mango is the artist, and it's on Amazon. It's really active there. There's dozens of reviews, and my art is visible on my website, but, I tell you what, taking one of these and reducing it to a digital photograph and putting it on a screen, it's a long way from seeing the real thing, and if you're curious about it, either call me. Can I give my phone number?
Yeah, sure. If you want. Yeah.
917-459-8319 or robertmango@me.com. But there's a bunch of stuff out there on me on the internet. If you want to reach me or know more about my work, I love people and I love talking about my work, and don't feel intimidated or afraid, because it's because of people in the audience that I do what I do. Other than that, I have in my next, I've had 4 museum shows going into the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And then I had the tour of European shows in Venice and in Zurich. And my next exhibition is going to be in the state of Illinois at the University of Illinois. Mm-hmm. It's coming fall of 8 Olympians that I've painted. Mm-hmm. But listen, Chris, this has been wonderful. And thank you for allowing me to expound on what I do.
Thank you. And I've learned so much. I mean, that's why I do this show. I learn much probably from my audience. I get to sit front seat and ask the fun questions and stuff. And what a great, I've had several epiphanies during the show. And yeah, now I have a greater appreciation for art than I did before. And I had a lot, but understanding that, sometimes I'm trying to fill that bucket. I mean, sometimes I can just be going through the madness of life. And, sometimes I'm doom scrolling on on the internet, you know, the world's going to hell and everything's on fire, which it seems to always be. May you live in interesting times, is the Chinese curse, I love to say. But, you know, I have all these in my portrait photography account, like on Instagram, and I have all this feed that I've developed of wonderful photography artists, especially in black and white. And I just find that when I come up, you know, I can be doom scrolling, the world's going to hell, and then I'll see these pictures come up through my algorithm, and I'll be like, I'll just experience this peace, this calmness, and, you know, return of sanity, sometimes imagination, and yeah. And it'll either inspire me or lift me. It'll fill that bucket that you're just like, you know, the rest of the day is, you know, fixing problems and putting out fires and, you know, but you'll go see this thing and you'll just sit there for a few minutes, maybe looking at it, and you'll maybe go through the artist's other work, and just an appreciation of art and taking the time out to, you know, look around in life. You know, it's all about the journey, looking around and collecting stories you go through life. It's not about the final destination. So thank you very much, Rob, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Outstanding. Great to meet you and great to speak with you.
Pleasure to have you as well, sir. So, folks, pick up Rob's book, Where Fine Books Are Sold. It is entitled 100 Paintings, An Artist's Life in New York City, and you can find it out there, and there'll be a link on the Chris Voss Show. Be sure to refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, youtube.com/Chris Voss, and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next.
You've been listening to the most amazing, intelligent podcast ever made to improve your brain and your life. Warning, consuming too much of the Chris Voss Show podcast can lead to people thinking you're smarter, younger, and irresistible sexy. Consume in regularly moderated amounts. Consult a doctor for any resulting brain bleed.
All right, Rob, great show.